They say opposites attract.
Well, how about these opposites? Daddies and sons.
You're listening to Daddy and Son.
A podcast where we explore the dynamics of daddy and son relationships, multi-generational views,
And everything else in between.
Welcome everyone to this week's episode of Daddy and Son. As you heard last week, Norm is not here, so we brought back a crowd favorite. Woohoo!
Look at me, I'm back!
It's Madre Mayo, aka Cole, or the opposite way around, I should say, Cole, aka Madre Mayo.
That will do.
Love to have you here on the show.
Thank you.
The audience reception was really good.
Oh, bless.
On your first feature visit.
Yes.
So we thank you for making the time to be here again today.
You bet.
And today we are going to revisit a topic that we previously spoke about in season 1, which is gay loneliness. So go back and revisit that, folks. Season 1, a great season. And we're going to be looking at like some of the specificity of gay loneliness and distinguish between being alone versus feeling lonely. We're going to highlight why gay loneliness is actually more so of an endemic and a public health public health issue.
Yeah.
And of course, give some tools for you, the listeners, to take away on how to deal with loneliness in general. And so I'm just going to start us off by just asking, how are you doing? How was your week?
The week was decent. There was definitely a couple upsides here in Toronto. There's a couple days of like peak heat and sun, which does the body good. I made a bit of vitamin D. For sure.
I know the sun is out. The spring is springing.
Yes.
I am fighting, as I said previously, right. I am fighting the pollens.
Yeah.
He just did like the cocaine shuffle.
That's right. Yeah. You couldn't see this on radio, but yeah.
Ladies and gentle gays. Yeah. He just did the cocaine shuffle. And I am feeling it, but I'm really waiting for my building to turn back on the air conditioning because it is hot.
You need to wear short shorts at all times.
And I apologize if you are hearing like sirens or birds chirping outside, some ambiotic noises, because, we had to open up the studio today. It's warm inside.
Yes.
With that being said, Norm usually asks, what are we drinking today? So I'm going to give you the honors, Madre.
Actually, it looks really beautiful, but I don't entirely know what's in it. I'm pretty sure I saw a flavored gin. Was that true?
Correct.
There's definitely a foaminess on the top, which I think is pasteurized egg white, but it has a delicate rose petal kind of beautiful bit on top. At least I think that's what it is.
You're right.
Okay.
So today we are drinking an Earl Grey martini. Cheers.
Cheers to Earl Grey martini. Woo! Cheers to the great Earl of Grey. Yes.
Oh, that is lovely. With Saint Germain, dry vermouth, like you said, some pasteurized eggs white because we aren't trying to pull off RFK Jr.
No brain worms for you.
Nobody wants brain worms or salmonella. With a little bit of rose water. Inside of it, some lamb juice to stabilize the egg white. And also, of course, some delicate pink rose petals on top to finish it off with some flavor, fragrance, and garnish. It is beautiful, it's delicate, it's giving springtime, it's giving... it's a definitely adult drink, but
sure.
also in the same breath, giving you pretty in spring.
It's a full mouth experience.
Yes.
Yes.
Full mouth experience. I count with you. With that, we are going to take a quick break and then jump right into it. So, kick us off. Gay loneliness. How do you define that?
So for me, I would make the distinction between choosing to be alone, which is an intentional act where maybe you're just trying to recoup your energy or you find it best for your purposes of self-care, to be alone for a period of time or an extended period of time with an intention to rejuvenate or to make yourself feel better about the week that you've had, as an example. So it's a specific intentional act for the purposes of recharging and feeling better. Loneliness, I would say, is a different animal in the sense that perhaps you're more longing for something, but the options as you see them aren't available for connection. And that loneliness can sometimes, not serve your soul or your spirit in the same way.
Yeah, I get you. Honestly, because I think where my thought process leads from you defining gay loneliness is, how do you separate that from just someone having burnout? Whether that's burnout from social interactions, burnout from recently I was speaking to a friend of mine, shout out to Kev, who was saying that I just need to take some time to just be by myself and relax because I am so burnt out from dating and so tired. Yeah. And so one thing that we kind of discussed and laughed about was how expensive dating was.
Sure.
Especially in this economy, girl.
Yeah.
We were talking about how dating expensive ones. Like, yeah, I might have to just like pause on dating for a while to just let my pocket breathe, and then come back again maybe in Pride in June, in Pride Month, because it's exhausting.
For sure. Oh, and expensive, to your point, expensive. I can see that, especially if you want to go out for a meal or buy a cocktail or whatever.
Yeah, so in this case, is it lonely to just isolate yourself, or is it just burnout?
I think that's perspective and how you want to judge your state of mind. So for me, if I was to say that I was feeling lonely, perhaps it's because I want for something, I long for something, and then I don't see myself as being able to get it, or I don't have the energy to get it, or it's not available to me, and so as a result, I feel like I'm missing out. I think if you are choosing to be alone, it's an intentional act, and you actually are not missing out, because as far as you're concerned, at that time of being alone, you are fulfilled. So I maybe to think of it in other terms, being alone is a fulfilling experience. Feeling loneliness, maybe you would think of it slightly differently, as if somehow you're in lack of something. Maybe I would take that approach in terms of defining the difference between the two.
Fair enough. So what do you think drives the psychology of gay loneliness for a lot of gay men?
So I think there's multiple factors. Sometimes it's like sort of age related. Sometimes it can be community related. Sometimes it can be internalized homophobia. Sometimes it can be external racism. There's a couple different factors, I think, that drive that sense of loneliness, where people don't feel like they can act out maybe to create community or find connection.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was something that we didn't even unpack or even consider the last time we spoke here, which was obviously... to the listeners who are longtime listeners, we looking at internal homophobia, and I definitely believe that self-shame
certainly
can make a big play into this. Last week, on last week's episode, Norm and I spoke about how people are now coming out earlier in life, and how he himself didn't come out until he was damn near in his 30s. And I, even myself, have dated men who didn't come out until they're in their 40s, 50s. And so now we are left in a situation where especially in these temperature, these political times,
Yeah.
are people now is society now regressing to a point? And this is more like a thought experiment.
Sure.
But is society regressing now to a point where people are in their head conflicted because on one hand we're seeing in the media we are more accessible through the apps to connect with folks, but it's like a shadow life. This is like or day drag versus or nighttime down low life.
Day drag. That's very good. Right?
Maybe I wear suits in the day and wear leather at night.
Sure.
But I'm conflicted because I work on Bay Street or Wall Street or Canary Wharf or wherever you are.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's this embattlement of the self, trying to sort mentally who I am, how do I want to represent, and how much of myself do I want to share with the world.
Right. I get that. And I think I would slice and dice your particular paragraph just now I think actually because we're complicated people, I would associate us individuals as being Venn diagrams. So as an example, me, Madre, in a certain way, because our context of our relationship is a certain way. But you don't see me out on the disco nights, living my best life in my booty shorts, being a slightly different kind of Madre, And I think also who I am is a little bit more contextual to which crew I'm hanging around with. So let's assume I'm with my volleyball people. I mean, maybe I'm a bit more volleyball. Maybe I'm not as Madre. I mean, I'm always going to be cunty. I can use that word, I think. But I mean, who I am is a little bit more contextual to who I'm with. And I don't know that leaves me lonely. I think that actually gives me opportunities to find different kinds of community. And so I mean, maybe you're more lonely. Maybe. So let's make this about me. So if I was at home and I didn't leave for a whole week, and all I did was play on my computer or on my apps, I might be a little bit more lonely because maybe I'm horny. Maybe I'm looking for something. But if I don't leave my home, none of that is being fulfilled because I'm not engaging with the world around me. I'm just in my own little bubble. And that's understandable, but I don't know that it's necessarily good for you long term.
Can I interject?
Sure.
And none of that is fulfilling if you are micromanaging yourself.
True.
In a way that you're not able to share your inner being with the world out of whatever reason, fear, discrimination, etc.
Yeah.
You name it. You choose your pick.
Of course.
But the only person that is able to share your true inner self with is you.
True.
And whoever it is that you selectively choose to share that with behind a screen, as an example, your example.
Yeah.
It's a lonely existence.
Yeah. For me, loneliness is a bit of a choice. And I say that because I'm surrounded by community. I'm involved in multiple layers of connections with people. Now, I'm very advantaged in the sense that I live in the city. I'm a legacy queer in this town, and I've known many layers and many Venn diagrams of people in my world. That's not everybody's option, but it certainly is mine. So I can choose to be lonely in my case, but I can choose also to jump out there and also make connections and also to engage people. Sometimes it's really just a matter of asking, like, do you want to join me for a walk? Grab a coffee and get a walk. By the way, can I circle back to the dating thing for a second?
Sure.
I appreciate that dating is expensive, but a coffee and a walk is not. Or going to, some event happening at the waterfront maybe, or wherever you are where something is going on, you can do things that don't cost money, but still allow you to connect with someone.
Girl, I just want to say it louder for the folks in the back. Please.
You can do things that do not cost money that allow you to engage and connect with people along the way.
Let me calm down because it's starting to hit very personal for me right now. But you brought up you said something earlier about family of origin.
Sure.
And that's also something that we didn't explore when Norm and I first spoke about this topic.
Sure.
go a little bit deeper on that. Explain what that means.
Sure. So my family of origin is a Ukrainian descent white group of lovely misfits and rural rednecks from Manitoba. We were informed by Depression era economics. We were informed by farming, and we were informed by a gene pool of roughly 5% or six degrees of people. That's my family of origin. So that's my sort of base programming, my Windows 85, if you will. But since then, I've moved around, I've grown, I've had different life experiences. So I have another operating system on top of the base one. But my family of origin on some level helps me root myself into making decisions or having a sense of what I would do in difficult times. And that family of origin was not necessarily queer friendly. That family of origin may have been overly racist. So it's my job to understand my family of origin and its influences, but also grow from that to be more of a man as I am today.
Yeah. I've said this recently. I think it was last 2 episodes ago when I was talking about, or maybe it's just me talking to a friend, having just a general discussion, but I was saying that part of the reason a lot of gay men tend to isolate themselves from society or just their family in general is due to stigma.
Sure.
And just due to wanting to grow from a situation that they see themselves in.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many folks I've dated who have... Remember Kung Fu Kenny? Well, not Kung Fu Kenny. Philsborough Doughboy.
Yeah, of course.
Came all the way from the U.S. Because he was like, well, my hometown in Portland, Oregon, is just very white. And I want a change in scenery. I want a change in society so that I can grow because I don't feel like myself. I feel, even though I'm surrounded by people, I feel alone because I don't feel like I'm able to grow as a queer man in this society. And even if I do go out, I'm just seeing other people who are like myself. Speaking of origin, it's the same thing when we talk about, even from a political point of view, most people tend to take the recent election as an example. Where most people who are new immigrants voted conservative, according to the polls.
Got it.
And most Canadians switched to liberal. I would say that a lot of this can be attributed to the fact that people who are immigrants, especially most of the immigrants that we're seeing in high numbers, Africans, Caribbean, Asian, and Indian, their culture is predominantly likely to skew more conservative. And what comes with conservatism? Homophobia. A stigma against things like HIV. The nuclear, man and woman family values.
I mean, in paradox to that, I find most of these conservative cultures are not particularly good with women, by the way.
Oh, no, you're absolutely
in terms
right.
of equality, I've never understood that. I've never understood why you, one hand, claim, and I'm being critical of culture now, where you claim to be a nuclear family and have family values, when in fact you, generally speaking, are anti-feminist in terms of your cultural beliefs. So when you even though you're in a completely new society, culture shock or not, you still have this psychological stressor, hurt, shame sitting with that you have to deal with. True.
I know there is some 36-year-old immigrant Indian man right now sitting in Brampton. Sorry. No shade. Sitting down, looking up to the sky like Angela Bassett and waiting to exhale like... when am I going to live my life?
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. Well, and the answer is you're going to live your life when you get your life. And by getting your life, I mean, I would argue that if you're going to buck loneliness, you're going to do it as a result of your own agency to make connections, to come to peace with your reality as it is. If your reality was, you lived in, I don't know, Kerala in southern India, and you were informed by your environment, and you chose to move to Canada, where there's a different sense of liberation,
geography.
Then fucking live where you are, not where your traditional values were informed. Because you're here now. And the reverse of that, and I'll stop ranting about immigration in a second.
No, you better preach.
And the reverse of that is if my mom hauled ass to Saudi Arabia and decided to hop in the Mercedes Benz and drive around Riyadh without wearing her head covering, she is not living in the environment where she is.
Not hearing it covering.
I'm just saying. I don't even know.
It's a religious garb, not a cook, not the lunch lady.
I mean, so I'm not going to pick on Saudi Arabia per se, but I'm just saying, live where you are, honeys. If you want to dispel loneliness,
like the lunch lady, the cook.
Live where you are. But can I take a bullet point of a mutual friend of ours? So our friend, we'll call him Jay. Jay is technically, formerly, a refugee from the Caribbean. He came to Canada so that he could have a liberated life outside of the cultural paradigm that was honestly not supportive of who he is as a genuine person.
Correct.
And that, to me, is a brave fucking thing to do. And it's also a way to break from your former life experience to adopt a new one. And we have a quote from Jay, by the way, because I did ask him to contribute something. And I'm going to turn around to read the quote in just a moment.
Yeah.
And I just really appreciate that he does break the loneliness cycle. It's hard to do, hauling ass to a cold motherfucking country compared to being in a Caribbean island and leaving all your family behind. That's difficult. And I'll read the quote in a second, but did you want to take a little bit of this with regard to
Well, here's, from my take as someone who is also from the Caribbean and also is an asylum seeker in Canada, now a citizen, I definitely come from the point of view where, what's with all the beeping?
Must be something on the gardener. Someone's flipped the car.
I hope this is not picking up on the podcast. And if it is, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, folks. In any case, for me, I think this is part of the reason I am so adamant. Emphatically have a strong position about who I date and how I date and how I choose to be treated.
I'm listening. Please elaborate. This is juicy. Keep continuing because this is important.
Because sometimes I will choose personally to be single and be by myself for my own peace of mind because there's no way I'm going through everything I've gone through. Cross continents, cross the sea to come here for a better life where being homosexual is completely legal to be hiding in the shadows.
Yeah.
I've gone through too fucking much. Went to refugee court, been on welfare, scraped my way up.
Living in a bus shelter. Don't forget that.
Exactly. No, honestly, to be in a situation where I am dating someone who is in the closet.
Right.
And I don't know what their reason is for choosing that lifestyle.
Right.
But I've done the work.
Right.
I have existed in that space of loneliness. And it's frankly insulting to even ask of me to regress into that position.
Right. I get that.
And as my mother, I've dated Canadian-born men, grown-ass men in their late 40s, now today probably are in their 50s, who are still in the closet.
Right. I have rolled my eyes on those occasions, by the way.
Who said to me while we were dating, they're just waiting for their family to die, their parents to die, so that they can live their life because it's easier if they just keep it to themselves rather than coming out the closet. I was like, hell no.
Right.
Hell to the no, no,
Well, and
no.
and in this case, they're really creating their own loneliness out of some phantom relationship with their parents. Not like by phantom I mean not authentic. So I think for me,
and I feel sorry for them. I do.
Yeah.
I do. I understand where your sentiments are coming from, being defensive of your daughter.
Yes, true.
But for me, I did feel sorry for him.
Right.
While I had to disassociate from that because it's so hard that for me to even quote a homophobe when I say this.
Yeah, yeah.
But in the words of the late Bob Marley, one must emancipate themselves from mental slavery because none but ourselves can free our mind.
Gotcha.
I'm sorry. You were going to say.
Okay, so maybe
I'm with you.
So we've kind of covered a bit of the loneliness topic, and so I want to talk a little bit about like how it manifests itself, but then also how we can sort of do better in terms of like mitigating loneliness or kind of reducing loneliness in our lives, as queer people. So sometimes we'll use substances to cope. Sometimes we'll use random one-off sex occasions to fill a hole. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But in fact, you're left a little bit more vacant, because you're not actually looking for sex per se. Maybe you're looking for intimacy. There was a time in my life when I would have a one-night stand, and this is what I would hear. Do you mind if we just spoon for a while? Can we just cuddle for a while? In my mind, I'm like, bitch, get the fuck out of the house. Like, we're done. The act of sex is completed. I'm good. But the truth is, I'm not so sure that they were actually looking for sex per se. My suspicion is they were actually looking for intimacy and sex on some level to sort of push down loneliness or sort of help with loneliness. Or they thought
they wanted sex, but what they really wanted was companionship and intimacy.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
And I think it's part of the loneliness factor. No, of course you can do things to count against loneliness. You can like create a chosen family, whether you find a spouse, adopt in kids, or you can choose a family that's already grown up, that allows you to have your chosen family members. You can give them names like daughter, and mother, that sort of thing. And
or Gunkle.
Gunkle, absolutely. Yeah. Shout out to Gunkle and Auntie as well. Mm-hmm. Both are men, by the way. And so you can create your own community. You can create your own groups. You can find people who, as an example, like to play board games. You can find people, or maybe a group already exists of queer board game players, or book clubs, or in the case of my daughter, she, running clubs. I think you really enjoy running clubs.
Yeah.
And so, but you can find athletic. Not every queer is athletic. Not every queer wants to be competitive on a court, but some of us are. And some of us want to. And in that, you can find degrees of community and also connection that to some degree mitigate loneliness. But you just have to make those choices or be in places where you can make those choices.
Yeah.
In terms of like sort of reducing the amount of loneliness in your life. And in that, you get to grow. You get to grow because you experience new people, experience new things, allow a sense of like agency and ownership over your feelings, which you always did have, but now you're just acting on it.
I agree, especially when it comes on to just taking agency for yourself. I think these are one of those situations where when you feel like you're lonely, but you're also horny.
Mm-hmm, sure. Yeah.
Prompt yourself.
Right. Go on.
Prompt yourself. Ask yourself deeply, if I go out right now and cruise or go to the bathhouse and I have sex,
right,
is that going to fulfill what I'm looking for? Would it be more fulfilling for me rather than going cruising or going to the bathhouse to go to the pub?
Sure.
And have a conversation with the person beside me on the bar stool or with the bartender?
Right.
Would it be more fulfilling to go to the mall and just walk and do window shopping and look at things and talk to the sales associate and buy myself something small and meaningful?
Right.
Like,
true.
a shirt to wear to 80s night.
There we go. A good example. A good example. Well, okay. I know this sounds like a practical guide too, but I mean, I want to take Alex's point and I want to dovetail into that. Imagine that you're feeling both horny and lonely. You're lonely and horny at the same time.
Yeah.
You're that sort of thing. Now, imagine a world where you decide to rub one out. Like, I mean, jerk off.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, rub one out, throw it in a tissue, throw it in the garbage, shower off, and then head out and have a jog or run into a friend to go for coffee or to go to a board game night. So you're actually fulfilling a number of different things all at once that allows you to be the most fulfilled. So you're not actually using the act of going out as a means for sex because you've already accomplished that task. But it's not like you can't go twice. It can be done.
But look at this.
Yeah.
Think about how many times. Because honestly, for me, I haven't been on Grindr since 2017, to be honest, and I'm gonna be frank.
Yeah.
I've been on other apps since.
Yeah.
And I do find often, like 90% of the time, it's a waste of my time.
Oh, gotcha. It's basically fishing.
Stop playing on your time.
Yeah, no.
Stop
Yeah.
playing on your own time.
Yeah, yeah.
Because here's what happens.
Right. Go on.
The girls will, and I'm a bottom, so I'm doing all the work.
Of course, that's it. Preparation,
I'm starving
timing,
all day,
food, yes.
douching, if it comes to that.
When you got to get ready, you stay ready. What's the Bob's right?
If you stay
ready, you don't get to get ready. Yeah, there we go.
And doing all the things only for somebody to cancel last minute or ghost you.
Right.
And that happens. I know there's somebody right now listening to this podcast with their mouth on the side of the corner, curled up in the corner of their face, like,
Or another listener who's just like, can I get a fucking amen on this? Yeah.
I'm telling you. Because so many times they're wasting your time.
Yeah.
And then you're like, you know what? It's 3 a.m.
Yeah.
I've gotten no satisfaction.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to rub one out and go to bed any damn way.
Yeah.
And all of that was for nothing.
Right. Well, can I take this at a different level? I mean, we'll come back to this. And we're on the topic of loneliness, by the way, in case we've lost track. So for me, just remember that with all these services that you're using on your phone, you have chosen to opt into them. They are not a part of your lifestyle. You do not have a permanent mark on your record that you have to maintain them. You can choose to, as an example, get off one or two apps and swap out, let's say your Sniffies or your Grindr or your Scruff or whatever the case is, and choose to do something else that night instead. I mean, I get that it's easy, but it's also, and this is the term you can look up, kids, the ambient intimacy is not fulfilling.
I agree. And that's where I was gonna kind of like round things off, because after I've found that after I've jerked off and that the horniness has worn off, that's when I truly realized deep down what I want is a drinking conversation.
Yes.
A cuddle.
Yeah.
A hug.
Yeah.
And I see it now being in an intimate relationship where I am not as sexual as I am when I'm single and jerking off 4 times a day every single day.
Yeah.
Now I am I'm basking in the cuddles. I'm basking in the one-on-one dates. I'm basking in the times that we get to spend time together, especially that it's long distance. And so for me, it resonates something in my brain where I now have to ask myself when I'm feeling lonely, do I want sex?
Yeah.
Or am I looking for intimacy and companionship?
Right. And here's the thing. That's a grown-up question to ask yourself. And it takes a lot of work to get to that point because so often, and especially as younger people, and I'm going to sound ageist now, so just brace yourself. And especially with younger people, I would argue that it takes time to be able to distinguish between these things to know where it is and what you want, and that comes with time. It's not, and that's just also practice too. Like, anyway, I'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
Well, I see that you're a little bit parched. You're out. So we're gonna do a quick shake and a refill.
Okay.
And we will be right back.
Okay. Thank you.
So tell me about what are the physical health consequences?
Welcome back, honey. I'm just making fun. Go ahead, play. Sorry, I'm just fun. I'm just messing with you, honey.
That's such a norm thing to do. Look how you fill in the shoes.
Those are some big shoes, honey. I saw your shoes, Norm. Those are some big shoes. I got you.
Living up to the expectations. Yes, welcome back, listeners. So I want to kind of dive into the physical health consequences of gay loneliness.
Sure.
I, for one, personally have seen where the psychology have led to the physiological effects. And I'm just speaking from my own personal experience in the past dealing with gay loneliness.
Sure.
Whether if that's weight gain, abuse of substances,
Sure.
and even going days without taking care of my personal hygiene, and I'm kind of going back to a throwback to the pandemic days,
For sure.
when gay loneliness or loneliness in general was probably at its peak.
Yeah.
And we haven't even touched the mental health side.
Right.
Being suicidal, feeling undervalued, underworth. I want to kind of talk a little bit more about that and get your perspective on that.
Got it.
What do you have to say?
Thank you. That's actually a couple great opening lines. So let me just first say, on a deeply empathetic note, during the pandy, and I'm making fun of it now, but during the pandemic, I had two queer friends commit suicide, just arguably due to their loneliness. And the only way I could account for this is that their social media and text messages stopped a week before I was informed that they were no longer with us, on this spiritual plane, and had moved on. And in my case, because of my lack of religious faith, they went back to source, which I presume is somewhere zooming through the multiverse where there's a cluster of white lights and bubbles and people living their best lives.
I'm stealing that, by the way. Went back to source.
Yes.
Especially, I don't know what the new Pope is like, so
Right.
I don't know if I may have to identify as non-denominational now or non-real agnostic. So back to source sounds.
But look,
I like it.
the new Pope is anti-MAGA, honey, and actually, more importantly, and this is a shout out to my bestie and my daughter's gunkle, the new Pope shares two common names with my bestie.
Oh,
Yeah, both Robert and Francis. That's my bestie's first and middle names. Anyway,
look at that.
Back to the less self-indulgent moment. Okay, so let's talk about physicality and mental health.
Yeah.
So for me, mental health is key to almost everything in this life, and it's the least talked about aspect of our humanity, but frankly, the most important aspect of our humanity. Our mental health as queer males, specifically because I can only speak to the queer male aspect of it, is complicated by degrees of internalized homophobia, by degrees of shame with regard to body shape, self-shame, not outside shame, but self-shame with regard to, are we enough? Are we young enough looking? Are we physical enough looking?
Yeah.
Are we the hyper toxic masculine butch man that we should be? And by the way, listeners,
Always
If you
straight
ever
acting
want to
enough.
offend me, use the word should, would, or could in a sentence talking about me, because that conditional language serves nothing. It serves nothing other than what is someone else's idea and not your idea of who you are.
It serves something. It's self-serving to them.
Certainly. Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
But I don't want it. I'm just saying, I don't want it. Keep that shit away from me. I don't want your fucking language. Should I be swearing?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
If it's against the FCC rules, we'll just bleep it out.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to show you my genuineness on this particular topic.
We can just bleep it out.
That's fair. Okay.
But I don't know. I don't understand.
Right.
Like for guys who, stay on the down low, but
Yeah.
cruise at the gym, cruise in the parking lot,
Yeah.
Cruise in the bathroom. I don't understand. I genuinely don't understand how this is. Then go home and drink half a bottle of vodka and constantly smoking. I don't understand how at some point you don't take a pause and just think, maybe my indulgence is related to how much of myself I'm hiding.
Right.
How much of myself I wish I could just share with the world or with the person that I genuinely love
Right.
or am infatuated with.
Sure.
But I'm too chicken shit
Right.
scared
Right.
to say something
Right.
or speak my truth or live my truth.
Right. So I'll use. So your gunkle provided me with a concept yesterday, and I do love.
Shout out to him because
Absolutely.
he's a registered psychologist.
Absolutely.
With the medical college, so he knows what he's saying.
True.
Yeah.
So he used the word self-alienation because he was reviewing the talking points that you and I are looking at today or have looked at today, and used the word self-alienation a few times, and I appreciate that in part because self-alienation can be rooted in, to throw back to an earlier part of the conversation today, in family of origin. Self-alienation can be rooted in how you reflect on who you are based on a marketed view of what attractiveness looks like. So I'm going to take a slight tangent here for a second, but I'll come back to the main point. When I look at Alex, I see a really beautiful man. And I'm not saying that because that's my daughter. I'm saying because bitch is hot.
Thanks, hon.
However, if you were to say, is Alex an all-American beauty? Alex, what does all-American mean to you?
Blonde hair, blue eyes, corn-fed.
Absolutely. Is that everyone's definition of beautiful?
No, because if in Europe, it's not.
Absolutely. So for me, I promise I'm getting back to the point. For me, if you, not you, Alex, but if you, listener, are somehow comparing yourself to what should be the notion of what is the most masculine, the most attractive, and it happens to be the equivalent of an all-American who is also happens to be toxically masculine but still gay, then I think you're defeating yourself, and that is worth some self-investigation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is part of the reason, even within myself, I have to take a step back and remind myself it's all a part of the circle of life. In my what is this? Mufasa. Earl Jones Gray.
James Earl Jones?
Yes.
Okay, go on.
That one.
That one, yeah.
My
Circle
God.
of Life?
I feel horrible as a black person not knowing his full name.
Oh, gotcha.
But
ask me another black question about black people. I can answer. Me. Just me. I can answer the question.
The circle of life.
It's all a big circle.
Yeah.
Because instead of choosing to sit there
Yeah.
and be lonely
Yeah.
and be sorry for yourself,
Yeah.
you could go out,
Yeah.
join a running club,
Right.
join a squash club.
Right.
Go play volleyball at the beach.
Yeah.
Things that probably are low cost to free.
Sure.
And then you find that you meet people.
Right.
You could running club is practically the new speed dating. You become
And hot guys, by the way. I've seen two running clubs in front of the 519.
Oh, girl.
Honey.
Girl.
Hot fucking men. Shout out to the running club people. Hello.
And I love when they run shirtless. But
I know.
digress.
Oh, shorts. Oh, that's what I saw yesterday. Gunkel and I were walking through the village after having a meal yesterday. Shorts, as far as the eyes can see in front of the 519.
And you yourself get to gain physical strength and wellness out of it.
Right.
It's all a big circle.
Yeah.
And I definitely believe that when we hold ourselves back, we are basically cutting into that circle.
Yeah.
So rather than it's forming a 360,
right.
It's just a 180.
Absolutely. So let me just jump in slightly here, a bit of a self-indulgence, but then I promise you're getting back to the physicality part of it. So as a preteen in rural Manitoba with a pizza face and a crackling voice, being told I have to go to ballet lessons, but at the same time coming home to feed the cattle, both grain and hay, and also making sure they were watered properly. I have a bit of a dichotomous concept of what life looked like as a teenager, specifically a queer teenager. By the way, I was never in the closet. You can't be this femme voice, and you can't be around enough rural people to know that I am the odd man out. I hate to use the word black sheep, but we'll use that because it's a farming analogy. So I've never been in the closet in my whole life. But the takeaway from that is not that I was ever upset, not that I was ever shamed by my immediate family. Rest assured, the remainder of the gene pool had different opinions on who I was and how I was. But my immediate family, generally speaking, was quite supportive. Or maybe sometimes quiet, not knowing what to do because they'd never had a queer kid before. But the bottom line is I came away from that experience with a degree of agency of understanding where my strengths lie. And here's where I'm circling back to. Where you are today in your life, whatever age you are in your life, understand where as best as you can, understand where your agency lies. Maybe you're a social person. Maybe you're an intellectual. Maybe you're an intellectual. Maybe you're an academic. Maybe you're a baker.
Maybe you're a comedian.
Oh my God. Like wherever your strengths lie, know that is in part why you're here. Know that is your gift. And people will often come back to you on that and say, by the way, did you know that you are X, whatever X is?
Yeah.
And I say all this to say, if you're trying to find a way out of loneliness, please understand that you do have a core gift and a primary purpose for why you're here. You may not know it just yet, but when you do, it will become very obvious how you can flourish with that and how you can disenfranchise loneliness or how you can mitigate loneliness or how you can diminish loneliness, all big words, by the way, and create community. Create your chosen family. Create your crew.
Ding, ding, $10 words.
Okay, so Alex, what is my gift?
Well,
why am I here? Why am I on this planet? You tell me. Why am I on this planet?
To be a light and a rock to the people in your life.
Yeah.
I think you're a godsend.
Bless you.
Because you are like your peers, but not like your peers.
Yeah.
You think first, and then you action secondary. And you are selfless in giving to the people around you, specifically the younger generation. And honestly, it's one of those things that are so aspirational for me in a way that I want to someday be a gunkle. You know?
I get that.
I want to someday be a madre. Because of the way that all things that you've given me. Case in point, how we met. Remember, I was in the bar by myself.
Yeah, true.
By myself.
Yeah.
And I went to that bar on topic
Yeah.
to pull myself out of loneliness. Because
Right.
I knew no one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I was still a new immigrant to this country.
Sure.
To pull myself out of loneliness. And what did you do? Like an angel, like
Right.
appearing,
Right.
just out the clouds, just
True.
came to me.
Do you want to hear what I did, audience? I'll tell you what I did exactly. So Alex was sitting by himself on the bar, by the bar, sorry. And I walked up to Alex. I'm like, I will introduce you to that group of really handsome men if you can answer 3 skill testing Oprah questions. And if you can, then you can come and meet my friends. I said, because it seems to me like you're here by yourself, and I would love for you to be connected with different sets of people in your life so that you could have the opportunity to create different friendships.
Yeah.
That's how I opened with you.
And I think that is your call to action, your magnum opus, your purpose in life.
Magnum opus. That's very good.
It is to be the great connector.
Absolutely. That is my function for being on this planet. I understand that completely. That is why I'm here. I get that.
It's to be the great connector.
Yeah.
And that is one of those legacies that you will carry on.
Yeah.
If anybody remember, and the one thing people, if you move away,
Right.
people are going to be like, damn, I miss Colston. He always knew somebody.
Right. Yeah.
And damn, if that's not something that I would only dream to live up to.
I do hear that periodically from
And
people
this is why
in my
I call
life.
you Madre.
Of course. Thank you, honey. I appreciate that. And so how this ties into loneliness is this. Because my self-indulgent spotlight is fabulous. I really appreciate that. Don't get me wrong. But how this ties into loneliness is this. The way you work past the fear of rejection is by practice. I understand as an example that if I were to go up to Alex or anyone who is like well above my fighting weight as it relates to like wrestling, so like, don't get me wrong. At Toronto, I'm a 7 out of 10. Alex is more like a 9.5 out of 10. So I realize I'm punching above my weight with people like Alex. But that said, I'm actually not bothered by someone's rejection, because what I know is this. If I go up to say to someone, hello, how are you? Tell me about your day. If I get rejected as a consequence of that, it's because they really don't want to talk to me. And it's because if I'm not their cup of tea, they don't want to talk to me. If they're having a bad day because they just had a shit day, they don't want to talk to me. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It's about the intention that I put forward. If the intention is to make connection and make community and to like build friendships, then if that's not recognized, that's okay. This is not the right time to connect with person A at the bar, or person A at the beach, or person A at the bakery. That's perfectly fine. We're not meant to connect. That's perfectly fine. But as a result of a number of times where you get hit by positives or negatives, you will learn to be a more socially aggressive person, especially if you're coming from a place not of overt need, but from a place of joy and wanting to be inclusive.
Yeah.
Does that kind of make sense? Would the listener understand what I'm referring to in terms of
Well, I do. I do understand, and I think it actually makes for a really good segue into try understanding what are the tools that we want folks to take away to not necessarily as a cure to loneliness, but some like a call to action. Right?
Yeah.
I, for one, think that the good old fashioned therapy never hurts anybody.
Oh, can I get an amen on therapy? If it is available to you, do not decline it.
I do understand that it's not as accessible in this day and age, which I do not understand why.
Right.
But I do understand that it's not as accessible to everyone.
Right.
But even if it's so much as going to a group, a group therapy at a community center.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything.
Right.
Some sort of therapy helps.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Fuck it. Even if it's retail therapy. Again, just being out there, talking to a sales associate. Bar therapy. Go talk to...
Therapy. My partner cuts hair for a living.
Girl.
Who doesn't talk to her about her
We
therapy?
need to give these barbers honorary degrees.
Right? Absolutely.
Because I can't tell you how many times I've been to a barber shop and they I don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
I do not know how they do it.
Yeah.
But these shout out to all the barbers out there,
Absolutely.
Especially the gay barber. Shout out to you all.
Yeah.
Because you all be taking in people's problems.
Yes, absolutely.
Relationship problems, baby mama dramas.
Of course.
Parents-in-law. Shout out to all the barbers out there.
Yeah.
You know, just therapy in general.
Yeah. Can I, a quick sidebar on therapy for a second. You know, I have good friends that are involved in 12-step programs. So sometimes therapy is not individual based. Sometimes it's finding community at your local community center, at your local church.
Oh my God.
That sort of thing. Finding that you have common ground with people. And so being in a 12-step program, God love you for participating in that. And in that, you will also find community as well. So, and I get that sometimes we're a bit kind of quiet about addictions and mental health, but it's time to bring that shit out. It's time to talk about it out loud with a sense of purpose and agency, to be like, it's perfectly fine that you feel an irregular human being because this is just this particular season of your life. Next season, you will be in a different state. And that's okay too. Okay, I'm done ranting now.
Oh no, I agree with you 100%. And this is why, listen, I've always been an advocate for therapy. As a tool.
Yeah.
But what else would you suggest as a takeaway for our listeners?
When you can find chosen family, grow it, build it, and also allow more people into your chosen family. Choose wisely, because not always does everyone at the stage where you want them at that particular point. So as an example,
Facts.
If you want a chosen family that is less racist, if you want a chosen family that is maybe not so concerned about age, choose wisely as to your chosen family. But when you find the right connection with people, build it and then allow more people in, but also allow them to calve off. So again, another self-indulgent moment. I'm a connector by choice. And if you read Malcolm Gladwell, specifically the book Tipping Point, you'll know what a connector is.
I am a book read for the girls.
There we go, right? This is somehow I'm legitimate now.
Alliteration for the ass. Okay, go on. But,
in my world, connecting people is super important, but my connection to them is my own. So as an example, I know people over time. I want for them to connect with other people along the way, independent of me. I'm not so ego-driven that I have to be attached to everyone deeply in my life, because I fully understand that people have individual interests where they ally themselves, where if I could be a connector that allows other people to connect as community members based on their own interests, I'm happy that we're connected. And that's perfectly fine.
And if I can build on that.
Sure.
Building, like you said, building community or choosing your own family.
Mm-hmm.
Chosen family, absolutely. I think this could expand into building or participating in a positive digital space.
Certainly.
One of the things that I did during the pandemic was to start, and the Discord group that I started, Toronto Boys, which is... When it started, we only had like 20 people.
Yeah.
And now it has over like 2,000 people.
Got it.
Massive group.
Yeah.
And I only did it as a way of gay people who live in Toronto to be able to come together and talk about, connect, play board games, trivia, find a sense of community.
Right.
I think... Or hook up if they want to.
Sure.
We
of course.
I'm not high. We do that.
We're still sexual beings.
We're adults. We're sexual beings.
Yeah.
We're homo sapiens.
Of course. Homo what?
We're homosexuals.
Homo sapiensexuals. Yeah. Making up a new word here, people. Don't call Merriam-Webster. Don't go pause. Yeah.
You know, we have cruising channels and hookup channels and porn channels. We have all the things.
Of course.
But we also have gardening communities, cooking communities, pet communities, all the things that are wholesome and individual to us that we can build on and bond on that is non-sexual and positive. Yeah. And not saying that sex can't be positive, because we are sex positive over here in Daddy and Son. Or Madre and Daughter today. We are very sex positive. Of course. But finding positivity in digital spaces that are not they're not eating you. Yeah. They're not for capitalism and consumption. Yeah. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And I think that is one thing that I want folks to take away and completely understand. And it doesn't have to be Discord. It could be Reddit.
Sure. It could be meetups.
It could be meetups
for, cooking, meetup for book club, meetup for,
There are so many different clubs out there, especially queer clubs that are centered around being outdoors or video games or board games or running, social, athleticism. There's so many different things out there. Find something that relates to you as an individual that is specific to your core being. Right.
Yeah, of course.
And get involved.
So I actually, just to pivot slightly, but we'll come back to getting involved. If anyone knows, this is a crowdsourcing moment, by the way. I'm making a request of the audience. If you happen to know of like a BIPOC queer reading group, please write Alex, and he'll give you the email address at the end. Because I have a friend that wants a reading group of queers to be able to relate to and like to have a community with. So I'm making a request of your listening audience right now.
The girls want a book club.
Yes.
All right.
Well, and if not, then bitch, put one together. You have a crew of people.
We can definitely do that.
This could be a Zoom shit. Doesn't have to be in person.
I'll wait for the listeners to kind of throw that in. Right. But you know what? In closing up today's topic, is there any final words? Any last thing you want to say for the listeners to like take home?
Sure. So, being alone is an active choice on your part for the purposes of regeneration. Yeah. If you are feeling lonely and that's bothersome to you in a way, then you have choice and agency to do different things. You can create chosen family. You can make efforts to create some kind of community. Could be board games in your neighborhood, could be a Zoom chat about a particular topic of your peers. However you wish to create community for yourself, don't wait. Because someone else is also waiting, just waiting for someone else to do it. And if you take the agency on your part to do it, you will find someone who will dovetail in with you. And then in that, to further mitigate loneliness, don't go out with the intention of trying to find the one, because that doesn't make sense. What you're trying to do is to find a group of folks who you have common ground with and who you have connection with. And then in that, my suspicion is that you will find someone who is most compatible with you. Not 100% compatible, because it's never 100% of anything. But like, you will find a way out of loneliness by virtue of your actions. That's how I'll close my aspect of this podcast.
Here. Honestly, I don't even want to fuck it up because you said you drove that.
I have no hair, but I'm doing a hair toss as we speak.
You ate that up. You ate that up. You fucked that right up, and
I like words.
There is nothing else that I can say to add to that other than take care of yourselves, love yourselves, put yourselves out there. Just whatever it is that you need to let go of those baggage, and at the end of the day, just remember, you need to love yourself. You don't need to seek validation from anyone else. Do whatever the hell that you want to do. Find people who are like-minded like you, and be kind to yourself.
Can I issue a challenge to your listeners?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So for me, the challenge is this. Do not accept commentary about femme shaming, about bottom shaming, about mocking cocks. Do not accept shadism. Stand up against bullying.
It's like cock mopping.
Sorry. I mean mocking cocks. Like too big, too small, too uncut, too much, whatever the case is. Stand up against these bullying tactics, because what you don't know is that by virtue of your actions, you are supporting someone who doesn't have the courage to stand up for themselves.
I agree. Oftentimes, the biggest bullies are the people who are insecure themselves.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, with that, thank you so much, Mother, for joining me again today.
Thank you, honey. I got the rose this time. Referencing 2 episodes ago.
You have to listen to get it. Thank you so much, listeners. If you've made it to the end of today's episode, I want to thank you so much for listening. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else that you listen to your podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Daddy and Son. And if you have any questions for the show, send them over to daddyandsonpodcast@gmail.com. That is Daddy and Son, DADDYANDSON podcast@gmail.com. Until next time, sons, be good to your daddies. And Mother, what do you want the bottoms to know?
Be proud, be fabulous, and be clean.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.